Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Major Pain Podcast, the only podcast crafted to guide men like you on unraveling your uniqueness and transforming the world around you. If you are a lady joining us, feel comfortable to listen as we hope women learn how to build better men through the golden nuggets we will be sharing and learning. Follow this podcast wherever you are listening. Kindly like and subscribe if you see these options on the platform you are engaging in. Guys, if you are doing anything, I want you to stop what you're doing and I want you to sit in the best comfortable position you've ever taken, because today's topic, you see it is hot. First off, I want to give a big shout out to Paul Martin, who sent in this question, which is a topic for sure. I had reached out to a couple of brothers, just asking them, what topic are you interested in hearing on the Major Pain Podcast? And Paul Martin sent in this question: should a married spouse have an opposite sex best friend? Yo, the moment I got this question, my phone was smoking already, because it's an interesting, exciting topic and same time very controversial topic. Well, the good news is, speaking about hot and spicy topics, there are other topics a lot of brothers sent in, which I will be dedicating other episodes to talk about. But in the meantime, when I saw this question, a lot of things came into my mind and I created a Facebook post. I asked this question right on my Facebook for people to share their thought. I also shared it on Instagram, but I got more response on Facebook than Instagram and elsewhere. And I would read what people sent in. But in the meantime, looking at this question, I feel like it depends on multiple factors. The first factor is your life stage. If you are a younger person, how you will answer this question will be different, okay? Because, you have best friends, besties forever. I never want to let you go. You are with me to the sun, even when we are on wheelchair. All those type of, futuristic ambitions that we have as a younger person, right? And also, if you are married, your response to this question would also be different. Family dynamics is another huge one. So if you were born into a family, say as a guy, being born into a family with just sisters. I have two sisters and I lost my dad, so I just grew up only with ladies. How I would answer the question would be different. But now add the layer of me now being married, so how I would answer it will be different too, right? And then we have religion. That could also make people look at this question from a completely different perspective, depending on how deep they are in their religion and also depending on the type of religion. We also have culture. There are some cultures that really don't see anything wrong or bad in having a male best friend. And some people, they see it as a big deal. It's an abomination, right? Also, state of relationship, which I already made mention of, if you are married or single, and to add to that layer is trauma. So depending on your life issues while growing up, your experience, your living experience, that would determine how you would answer this question. So there are a lot of factors to play. So I'm not just going to say it's a black and white yes or no, but we would explore a lot of these things as we proceed in this episode. So I hope you strike in a comfortable position. You still want to get a tea because this is going to get very hot and spicy, all right? All right, let's jump into this. Okay, I have a story here for you. It's a story of two best friends, Billy and Jessica. So Billy got married to his sweetheart, Sarah. And him and Jessica were friends before Billy married Sarah. Billy didn't get to set any sort of boundaries why he was married to Sarah. So anytime him and his wife had issues, he would just go straight to Jessica and he's just telling her everything, like, Sarah did this, I said this, what do you think? And Jessica would like process the whole thing and get to tell Billy how women respond and how women feel, and just trying to hear him out and try to help him process things, right? So this continued for quite some time until one day Billy and Sarah, his wife, had an issue, and then Billy said, Jessica would never talk to me that way. And Sarah was like, you said what? Billy responded, I said, Jessica would never talk to me that way. I don't know if you spot what just happened. Could it be that Billy had reached the point of no return? Perhaps he has gone too far into the friendship that he is more married to Jessica than Sarah. I want you to understand that there are lots of marriages and relationships that are currently going in this type of directions, but it's either they don't know or something is just yet to happen before they figure out that they are more intimate to their best friend than they are to their partner. So when I put out the question on Facebook, a couple of responses, I'll just read them. So there was one person who responded and she said yes, as long as they establish boundaries. So she's like, yes. She said yes, a married spouse can have an opposite sex best friend as long as they establish boundaries. So I have another person here, Biodun, one of my very good friend who lives in the United States. She said, no, a best friend of the opposite sex is playing with fire. And I found that really interesting and I agreed with it. And she expanded and said, what we are also seeing is a lot of people who don't have the discipline or understanding of the dangers involved. Yeah, and that's why I'm making this episode, right? Because a lot of people don't seem to be aware about it, and she's married, so she's seeing a lot of things and she knows what she's talking about. I have another person here who is Eva Bautista. She said, I was thinking that even if a male and female subject truly has an innocent relationship, it may trigger negative reaction from their spouses. Plus, changes always happen and temptation is always waiting to happen. One slip that leads to an irreversible mistake that can ruin everything. I also agree with that. It just takes one slip, man. One slip and it's like a barrel of gunpowder that explodes. You understand, right? Yeah, that's how one slip with just one mistake can make. And the final comment I have here is from Mary Grace, and she said, no, I don't agree. After you get married, the only best friend that you are going to have is your spouse, no more, no less. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, and I feel some people, this word best friend, it's very tricky. You understand, right? I also agree with her when she said the only best friend you have when you get married is your spouse. But for those of you who are still single and who kind of are trying to wrap your mind around it, or even if you are married, but again, based on your religion, family, life experiences, and all that, you might be struggling to wrap your hand around it. I perfectly understand because I was also in that same type of situation and same perspective until a couple of experiences and couple of things passing by, and then you're just like, oh, okay, I used to think about it this way, but now perhaps maybe there's another perspective I can uphold, or maybe there's another way I can go about this thing, which will be seen the other way. But in the meantime, let's ask ourselves this question, which I feel is very important because I noticed that because I wasn't asking myself this question as per what could go wrong, I wasn't seeing or understanding the other things involved. So, one of the things that could go wrong is trust. Having trust issues. That's your spouse or your partner having trust issues. Earlier, I made mention about trauma as one of the factors that can affect how we respond to this question. So, if you have been cheated on, I can assure you there's really no way you will say it's okay for your partner or your spouse to have an opposite sex best friend. It just doesn't work, except if you've really worked on yourself. But how many people have really worked on themselves to that extent? So it can make them have this type of psychological gymnastics. You're just not sure on who will betray you, when is going to happen, what is going to happen, how it will happen, and that just leads to this feeling of being insecure. And trust me, if you have an insecure partner, we know how that plays. It's not the best or the most exciting feeling. The next thing that could go wrong is intimacy. This would then affect the intimacy aspect of you and your partner, and you just notice that you two are not as compassionate and passionate like before. You two are not really having those nice time and conversations because there's just this barrier and block in between. And speaking about intimacy, sometimes we think it's only our partner we can be intimate to because we have some physical intimacy, unknown that there's something called intellectual intimacy, whereby the person that you have the most mind-bending type of conversations with, you are more likely to be intimate with them, especially if they are the opposite sex. Trust me, if you are having some level of deep conversation with your opposite sex best friend and you have a spouse or a partner, you're pretty much playing with fire at this time. But I understand that you can have friends who, based on their personality, based on their life experiences, you can have certain tiers and levels of conversations. But the last thing you want to do is establishing that intellectual intimacy with someone who is not your partner. Also, we can think it's only opposite sex best friend, but even your fellow sex best friend. Take for instance, there are some guys who the moment they have an issue with their partner, instead of them settling it with their partner, they just go straight to their boys, or and they're just narrating everything to their guys, and their guys are like, oh, you don't need to do that, oh, you don't need to apologize, oh, this and that. And they pretty much having this intellectual intimacy with those guys, and before you know it, you are just more into your best friend than your partner. And that's why sometimes you see some certain relationships that when the spouse or partner is having issues, emergency, versus when their best friend is having emergency, how they respond is completely different. I've seen it, trust me. And it's really disgusting that you would respond faster than 911 to your best friend than how you will respond to your partner. Sometimes you wouldn't even know, just like Billy, you wouldn't know how far you've gone until boom, it happens. And this would make your partner lose respect for you because you don't even respect them in the first place. This now brings us to a lot of argument, a lot of, issues of you trying to convince your partner that your best friend is safe, but they are already seeing that no, they are not safe. You can't even see how far you've gone to the other side, and this now affect all the goals that you two as a couple or as a partner have together. It affects your ambition, it affects the aspirations, it affects the unity, and this just lead you guys to a complete slippery slope And what happens is things just fall apart. And there you go, you are like, oh, my partner, she doesn't like my best friend, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But you had all the opportunity to reflect on what could go wrong, but you just didn't do it. And you didn't act on it. And you felt like if you were to act on it, you would A, break your friend's heart, or you break your partner's heart. But at this point, what matters most to you? Your friend's heart or your partner's heart? I'll let that sink in for some time, and then we'll proceed to the next phase of this conversation. All right, I feel like the temperature, it's really hot in here. It has increased, man, because right now you get to see things from a different perspective. You're asking yourself questions, you're able to reflect on particular scenarios. And if you are currently single but you've been in a relationship before and this was an issue, now you seem to understand what were some of the things that sparked a couple of issues that you didn't just know where was the origin, right? Now, let's talk about the way out. So when I had put out this question, my sister, Phyllis, she had sent me a couple of ideas and a couple of thoughts. Big shout out to my sister. Thank you so much. I love you. All right. So the first way out is communication. So if you are dating someone right now, what you want to do is you want to talk to the person. You want to talk to understand what was their childhood like. Ask them questions. You tell me, who are your best friends while growing up? Or who were your best friends while growing up? You want to know who they are. You want to know the nature of the relationship, the nature of how close they are. You want to know if they are currently in their life and what is that communication and conversations like. Is it the type that they get to share with their best friend every single thing that is going on, or do they just highlight topics here and there? You also want to ask questions about their culture. Are they from a culture that cherish opposite sex best friend? You want to be fully sure about these things before you say go into a long-term or committed relationship, because these things are things that, if not discussed right now, could cause a potential threat later in the future. And these are, say, friends that they've grown up with, and you don't just expect them to just divorce or separate from those friendships automatically because they are married. It doesn't make sense, right? So you want to ask those questions. Also, ask questions about their family dynamics. Well, you might be sure at this point if you're a guy dating a girl and she has lots of brothers, you want to know, like, how close are you to your brothers? Are there other guys who are your friends that you consider brother? You want to be sure. And I believe when you ask these questions, they also are understanding where you are coming from. Although you are not just expecting them to understand, but you are clarifying your intention and why you want to know. And vice versa, they can also ask you the same thing. And even if they don't ask you, you also want to share in return. Because the goal here is for you two to understand each other. You setting the foundation, right? And you need to set it right. Now, if you are married and you guys haven't had this conversation before, but now you see that it's very important you have this conversation, just ask yourself, what matters most to you? Is it your best friend, or is it your partner or your spouse? Which one matters most to you? The overall goal should be peace, long-lasting relationship between you and your partner. The other thing you can still consider is, does this opposite sex best friendship you have, does it align with the values that you and your partner have as a couple? Like, you just want to put all these things together. If you and your partner value friendships, especially friendships of opposite sex, gender, then I mean, why not? But if you two don't really value it and you've looked into it, you've discussed about it, you've seen the pros and cons, and you guys are able to establish some type of, expectations, then so be it. The most important thing is you two are able to dialogue and come in the middle and understand each other. So those existing friendships that you have, you just want to discuss about the nature of it and say going forward, how do we intend to handle this type of friendships? Now, this brings us to the second point of a way out in maintaining or handling this type of situation. Transparency is such a huge one, honestly. Are you the type that is sneaking to make some calls or, chat some chats or send some pictures type of thing? I mean, these are red flags that is right in front of your face, and because you are the one carrying the red flag. You can't say you don't know that what you're doing is not good because you feel the excitement, you feel the thrill, and you feel that rush that goes through your veins when you are sneaking and doing those things that you shouldn't be doing. I can assure you that every sin will be exposed. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. Sometimes you can even take it further by putting password protection on your phones. I can't really tell you what to do about it, especially if you've been in some horrible relationships where people tend to steal your personal information. But for me, I have password protection, yes, but my wife has access to my phone. Her thumbprint can open my phone. She knows my password, right? And to me, that is a way of me showing her that I'm an open book. I have no skeletons to hide. I don't want any misunderstanding. I don't want any feeling of jealousy. Like, here is it. You have my stuff is your stuff. Take and, just have fun. Some people, if your partner is to take your phone just for 5 seconds, your heart would explode because you don't know what sort of text could come in, what they could see pop up and all those things. I mean, why struggle to keep all those skeletons in the cupboard? Those skeletons and bones that is just stenching, and you yourself, you feel the stench right from your phone. Like, what does it do for you? It doesn't do anything. It just makes your life so uncomfortable, and I think it's really not important. Yeah, you can put some of your infidelities and tag them as best friends, but you know that those are not best friends. Those are things that baggages that you just carrying along the way. Do you want to live like an open book? And if your answer is yes, then you really want to streamline your communication, right? You want to build transparency, you want to build trust, you want to build honesty, reliability. Let your partner know that you are reliable, you are loyal to me. You don't want to leave them guessing. Is this person loyal? Is this person determined? Does this person love me? You don't want to do that. There's just so much stress about life on a day-to-day, and the last thing you want to do is to put that extra layer of, oh man, I don't know who they're talking to right now. Who is this person on the phone with for a long time? You don't want that. The other thing about transparency is you also want to let your best friend understand how your partner feels about the friendship. If your partner is not cool with the friendship, let your best friend know. Hey, my partner doesn't really like how we talk so often or how we vibe so much. Perhaps, we could scale things down. You understand, right? I mean, I don't want to make my partner feel this way, that way. And if your best friend is reasonable, they would understand and they will back off. In fact, they would respect your choice. And this brings me to the next part, which has to do with respect. If you respect your spouse or your partner, then you know that your best friend is not entitled to certain positions. Wife is your wife. A friend is your friend. Friends are not your wife. And the best friend title should be your wife. or your partner. It might take you some time to fully wrap your head around this, to know that indeed, according to one of the comments that said, your best friend should be your wife and your partner, and that's it. And to be honest, if your best friend, if your wife or your spouse haven't onboarded that title best friend, then it means you still have a long way to go. My example earlier about Billy and Jessica isn't entitled to hear about Billy's problems. I mean, Billy can talk about some of it, but not all of it. And also how he talks about it now matters, because if he could talk about it in a very derogatory and disrespectful way, then Jessica automatically start having lots of disrespect for Sarah, Billy's wife. You need to care about your partner's feelings, and you need to mind how you position their image in front of your friends, because that image is how they would respond and how they would take your relationship. Sometimes you hear of situations whereby friends don't take other friends' relationships serious. Why? Because you give them that opportunity to do so. You told them that it's fine. Disrespect us all you want, all you will. And I have no problem with that. So here's another great question I have for you to reflect on. Does your friend respect your marriage? Does your friend respect your relationship? I want you to sit on that and just use that as a scale to gauge whether you are on the right track or you are on a path that you need to recourse. All right? Some people don't understand the gravity of commitment, and they need to be accountable for that. The moment you jump into a relationship or you start a relationship and then gravitate it to marriage, you are held more accountable. It's not a matter of, oh, I didn't know, or I wasn't thinking about this. Then you sure are not just responsible to be in a relationship. Everyone is accountable for their actions, for their choices. And the earlier we own up to those things, the better. The more matured you are, you're not a child. The fourth aspect of a way out is compromise. Are you willing to let go of friendships if it's causing so much pain in your marriage or in your relationship? I wouldn't say relationship per se than marriage, because marriage is deeper than relationship. You guys are just seeing each other. What are the odds that you two will get married? But again, it all depends, because I've seen situations whereby you let go of certain friendships only for you to then break up with the person you were seeing, and then and maybe that friend, you two were just fine, like there was no issue at all, but just out of jealousy and all that, and now you are no more with the person you were dating, and you and that friend now just have enmity forever. No. You want to be wise about certain things, right? Of course, you also want to state your values while you are seeing somebody. If you value friendship, you want to let them know. Again, back to that aspect of communication. So you want to be sure, if you are married, that the friendship, is it worth risking your own marriage at that point? Just imagine your partner feeling insecure for a friend who is having their best life elsewhere, and that so-called best friend have no idea that they're causing so much trouble at the dinner table or on the bed where you ought to be making love to your partner or your wife. They have no idea their name is causing earthquake in your home. Like, just imagine. At this point, I would say how stupid it is. Is it worth it? I mean, you tell me. If it's worth it, fine. If it's not worth it, then you really want to compromise. You want to let go. You want to cut down communication, or just let your friend know this is what it is and this is how I feel and all that. And so be it. Harmony is the goal. Do everything to attain it. All right, let's jump to number 5. So among everything I've been saying, this particular word kind of ties in between. you must have heard it and you must have been waiting for me to say it. Boundaries, right? You want to establish them, you want to respect them, and observe if your friend respects your boundaries. Very important. The moment you are to establish your boundaries and your friend doesn't respect them, that friend automatically is showing you that they are not a good friend. It's that simple. You don't want to say, oh, because I've known you for XYZ years and all that, that means I now want to cut back on my boundaries because I don't want to hurt your feelings. Well, I mean, I've already talked about this, so you know what you know how I feel towards that, right? You might want to settle for having more phone conversations than having in-person meetings. In some cases, you might want to reduce the frequency of the conversation. It all depends. I mean, by the way, aren't you busy doing other things with your life that you just would rather sacrifice all the other time you have for this one friend? And what happens? What happens with the other things that need your attention? Your partner, your goals, your dreams, your family, other things that are very important. We just have 24 hours in a day. But I've seen people who are willing to sacrifice 6 hours for their best friend and not their partner, which is a huge shame. And I feel like that needs to be called out. So you also don't want to spend excessive time alone with your opposite sex best friend. I mean, come on. These restrictions are for you. It helps you to maintain a healthy frame of mind and heart, spirit, soul, and body so that you can function and reserve your energy for what matters most. The last part, which I was struggling if I should include this or not, is inclusion. Well, my sister said if you have a opposite sex best friend, you might want to include them in particular activities with your spouse or partner. Well, again, like I said, it depends. If this opposite sex best friend is like a brother, like no other type of thing, and if they don't feel good, like you feel like, man, if I'm to have this person come over, my partner could be arrested for murder or for torture, you definitely don't want to have them come around, right? So you want to be wise about it, okay? But including your best friend in things like this could make your partner feel reassured that you have nothing to hide, everything is fine, and everything is okay, they are safe, they are good. And they also get to know this so-called best friend more because they got to see the person, they ask them questions and all that. But again, you just want to be careful. If you notice, I struggle with the word best friend if you are maybe married and the opposite is the opposite gender that's your best friend. I just struggle with that, okay? Even with guys too, I still struggle with that. To me, I feel like the moment you get married, everyone that was on that best friend title lose that title and your partner gets onboarded that title. If not, then maybe you shouldn't just get married. Maybe you should just as well move in and live life forever with your best friend, right? Besides, isn't that what it should be? That's why they say you gotta marry your best friend. Well, that's my thoughts. I'm seriously unapologetic about how it might make some people feel when they listen to this. But my hope is, first of all, you get to ask yourself those questions. What could go wrong? And you are not being fictional about this thing. Rather, you are being realistic to yourself and you are being truthful to yourself. That's what I would say. The other thing is no friendship is worth the risk of your marriage. That's it. You really want to be wise and you really want to be smart about life choices. But above all, the choices you make is up to you, and the choices you make would definitely influence. It could enhance your relationship. It could destroy your relationship. It's all up to you at the end of the day. But for me and my house, these are the choices I've made, and I can be 1,000,000% honest with you. It has helped me. It's working. I'm super excited. I still have really good friends who are opposite gender and we have great conversations, but I'm also doing all the things I've said. setting boundaries, respecting my partner. I'm very open with those communications. I'm very transparent. And and I hope you do better if you're listening to this and you're struggling with all this. I know this was a hot topic, but you can share with me what stood out for you in this episode. Let me know. You can send your response to majorpainintl@gmail.com, or you can put your comment in the chat depending on the platform you are listening to this episode. If you think I missed something, let me know, and I'll be super excited to respond to that. I appreciate you. Thanks for listening, and I hope you make the best choices in life. Take care. And guess what, guys? Marry your best friend. Yeah, that's good for you. Take care. Cheers.